March 13th, meeting of the Parks and Recs Commission for the town of Buchanan. We will first start with roll call.
Tim Kumple,
Francesca Segales,
George Bennington,
Doug Murphy,
Keith Ritchie,
Lindsay Heron,
Hank Green.
Sue Leone.
Right. Okay, the second order of business is to approve the minutes from our February 7th meeting. Is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Keith. Second, Lindsay. All those in favor? Abstentions, noes. Okay, so carries. And next on our agenda, excited to introduce Mr. Generalis. Is that correct? Pronounce your name. Who has a very exciting Eagle Scouts project he would like to propose to our group. Welcome.
I want to thank you all for meeting with me. As I said, my name is Jason Generalis. I'm right now a Life Scout of Troop 70. So one step before Eagle. And you need an Eagle project to move on to that final rank. And I wanted to do something that really impacted the community that a lot of members could use. So you have handouts in front of you of what I designed to be a cornhole area and a park that we're still flexible choosing. It could either be Kiwanis, it could be Mead, it could be Irwin. It would be ultimately up to you guys to decide where to put it. But you can see I sketched out what I envision the area to look like and the dimensions of the cornhole boards, as well as the design we'll put on the cornhole boards. We would be providing beanbag boxes in the area, which is made of stone dust that the cornhole boards lay on. And we, Troop 70, would be restocking 20 red and 20 black beanbags a year to keep it going, make sure that nothing gets stolen, lost, ruined, and make sure that as much people can enjoy it as possible. So on the one that's a little easier to read, the pen sketch, you can see the dimensions. I would be going for a 45 by 30 foot stone dust area that we would dig out, fill in, and then we would put the boards on, and that would be the area. Our goal is to make the boards as weatherproof as possible, so no one would have to come in, take in the boards, do anything like that. We want them to stay there 24/7 and to be immune to the elements. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions.
Is this yours too?
Yeah, that's fine. The copies didn't turn out as well on that one. So let me know if you need help reading it.
Yeah, tell me what it is.
So this is a sketch of the top view, bottom view, and side view of the cornhole boards that I would be planning to build. It's a 4 foot by 2 foot design with a 6-inch diameter hole in the middle. As you see on the top view, there's a ram sketch, and we would be customizing each of the boards with paint and then polyurethane to finish it off so the beanbags slide well. They would have retractable legs in case they ever were to be new. Hopefully that wouldn't happen. And they would be built sturdy.
Does this need flat land?
Yes, so it needs semi-flat land. However, because we're going to be digging out and laying the stone dust, it will help with the flattening process. Obviously, you can't start on a hill and do all that, but it doesn't have to be perfectly flat for us to start because we're doing the stone dust.
Have you talked to John Howe or any of his team about where there might be good places for this?
Yeah.
we picked a couple different, looked at a couple different locations per se, and yeah, I think you could find a nice place. And then we're still going back and forth whether we should actually anchor them down or allow them to be movable. So,
Question, John, I'm interested in the locations you looked at, and I'm wondering, is this one of the things we actually could use Irwin Park for? And you know, in Irwin, there's that kind of barn kind of area, and then they have a walled-in area which we use like for storage for old chain link equipment. But you know, there's an area right there which is pretty level and fenced in, and so
we
mention.
in fairness, we didn't really go and look at places yet, but we talked about some different places where they could go, you know, whether it's down in Kiwanis or the area that a lot of people would know is the old horseshoe pit. That was his first location.
That's
down in
Mead,
Mead
right?
Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, the playground. So we haven't decided where, but I think they might get a lot of use.
Yeah.
So where's the horseshoe pit in Mead?
Beyond the, playground.
Ah,
There is no horseshoe pit
Oh,
in
there's a
there
pitching.
anymore.
Oh, really?
It was.
Would this be a lit facility?
Oh,
A lit lights?
so we're kind of planning wherever we put it to make an optimal location. We weren't planning to install lights, however, where it is at Mead, it kind of falls under where a light would, the location I originally looked at falls near a light, so it would be lit at night. I haven't looked at Kiwanis or Irwin location, so I wouldn't be able to specify on those, but, if it's necessary, we would, like you said, it's a fenced in area. I haven't visited it, but we could always install lights on the fence in case you want it to be lit.
Well, if there's a horseshoe pit area in Mead, I haven't, much of
It's been gone probably 10 years now, so.
To me, that's like this would be a great replacement.
Sure.
For horseshoe pit, right?
Yeah,
Kind of a-
absolutely.
Kind of a natural
Wet.
evolution.
Is that a
Yes.
wet area?
Yes, it
Maybe-
is.
That's the only thing I would say with that, but
Right.
it might be a little tricky because you're hoping that these would be all weather. And the stone desk will definitely help, but like if that's sort of a wet area, then that seems like that might be a little hard on your, on the corner pole.
Yeah.
Grab a chair.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're using enough stone, that you could raise it, right?
Yeah, presumably.
Bridget, you had a question?
Yeah, what age group does this target?
Honestly, I was thinking of targeting multiple age groups. If it were to be at Mead, you have parents waiting for their kids on the
I
playground,
know
parents to
all
play.
ages.
Yeah, so all ages, I was also thinking, it's not drawn in this diagram, but if we were to make 3 boards, maybe having one of them closer if we wanted a younger demographic to play, in case they couldn't throw it as far, if they were to be anchored.
Oh, I see. So we're not even sure they're gonna be anchored.
Yeah, we're still deciding that.
What's your timeline to have this project complete?
So the Eagle proposal takes, a little bit to get approved. I was hoping if I were to get approval this meeting, then I would send it in the next, week or so and get it approved by the, like, mid to beginning of April. Then, I would contact Rings End dealers and Home Depot dealers to get all the supplies necessary. And building would take place at the end of April and beginning of May. And then the installation process, we'll hopefully have it for the beginning to mid-June, so people can enjoy it for the summer.
Jason, would the scouts be responsible for the maintenance of this ad infinitum forever?
So we're planning to have plenty of replenishments on beanbags every year, like I said. I mean, we're having 3 boards, so that would be a 4 board, so you would only need 12, we're planning to get 20 a year. I mean, if it's my Eagle project, I would stop by, I would always make sure everything's going right with it. Make sure nothing bad happens.
I agree. I think the important thing is, I spoke to James and to John about this, is that John's group can have the maximum amount of flexibility as to the location of these wonderful, I think, new devices that will add a great deal of value to town. But just to have flexibility because of weather or element and vandalism, something of that nature, we may have to move them. I think ideally it's gonna probably be between Mead and Kiwanis, my guess.
Really, I was thinking, Irwin's not a bad spot where that playground for toddlers was supposed to, it was proposed.
So there's the little maze there already. So
Could it
we can look at it.
there
Yeah,
as well?
we can look at it.
Because that's definitely dry. Mead, we have water to deal with and a
Yeah,
ton
but-
of people.
Me, and I'm there all the time during the tennis season. There's a lot of people that, like, they come with their kids to watch a baseball game, or they're between tennis match, that I could see that there'd be kind of a nice thing to kind of hang, or they're there with their little child who's playing in the playground. Be nice for them to have something to do. And I like the idea of having, you mentioned a shorter length, because to me, the 27 feet seems pretty long.
Yeah,
But maybe have one for kids, it's like 15 feet, and so leave a little kid could use it. I can see that would be a little.
yeah, that's why I didn't originally pick Mead. I thought it would get the best use based on what I've seen.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Are there any further questions from the members of the commission? John, you can reaffirm that you're supportive of this as well. Okay.
Okay, definitely.
Is there a motion to approve?
I would do.
Susan, thank you. A second, Doug? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? So carries. Nice job.
Great
Thank
job.
you so much.
It's all right. Gene, you gotta announce your name for roll call too.
I raised my hand.
All right. You also say your name for roll call.
Gene Goodman.
There we go. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys
Great,
so
thank
much.
you. Appreciate it.
Good job.
Good job. Look forward to seeing these. Okay, next on the agenda is Mr. Benevento with their yearly update on the New Canaan Athletic Foundation. A lot of exciting projects going on.
We hope. Hope is not a strategy, John. I do.
Follow.
Nope. No, I didn't do it. No. How about that? That works. Will you be able to switch? Yes. Okay, great.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Benevento. I'm the chairman of the New Canaan Athletic Foundation. Thank you all for having me here tonight. I'm here to present my annual report. I've done this so far at the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, multiple times. Now tonight at Parks and Rec, tomorrow night I'll be at Town Council. And this is the annual report on 2023 and what we have going in terms of projects. So 2023, another successful year managing the enterprise zone. I'll just remind you in the summer, generally speaking, between June 15th and August 15th, as part of our 2018 Memorandum of Understanding and the public-private partnership with the town, the Athletic Foundation agreed to run the fields as part of the enterprise zone, clearly defined. You'll see in one of the next slides. I wouldn't say for profit, but for the benefit of the town, for enterprise. So the idea is we rent those fields out during that time frame, and the money that is collected, the net revenue, is a direct pass-through to the town for benefit of the replacement of the turf one day, right? We've created a turf replacement endowment. It's kept at the Community Foundation, and that's been, relatively successful, I'd say. We started in 2019 with a crawl, walk, run strategy. We got interrupted a little bit with COVID in 2020, but the last couple of years have been pretty consistent. So we had gross revenue of roughly $62,000. It's down about 6% from 2023. That was one less lacrosse tournament that we hosted and a couple fewer rental hours from soccer. We also, as part of the Memorandum of Understanding, collect the player use fee, which was defined by the 1997 Fields Committee report. I believe it was a long time ago.
Because I was hired in '98.
Yeah, so as part of that study, every organization in town, the youth organizations, the rec organizations, pay what's known as a player use fee, which is today set at $25. It's part of the MOU in 2018 for the benefit of transparency and for those that pay into that fund or that pay that $25 fee per registered participant in the various programs. We established two funds. Half of the funds go 50% into that same turf replacement endowment fund, and the other 50% goes into an enhancement fund also held at the Community Foundation. We'd like to call it Shiny New Toys. But everybody that participates in town athletics and sports, whether that be lacrosse, flag football, men's softball, youth baseball, youth softball, all of those organizations pay use fee. This year that that's anticipated. We've actually now collected everything for 2023, roughly $94,350. So again, half goes to turf replacement, half goes to shiny new toys, complete transparency on that. And we've gotten a lot of support from the participants in that they like to see, and they know exactly where their dollars are going for that player use fee. What are some of the things that we accomplished this year? Well, I don't know if anybody's been over to Dunning, but it was kind of a fast and furious build, but we completed the build of the donor wall at Dunning Stadium. That was 100% funded by the Athletic Foundation. It's a beautiful new part of what's contemplated to be an entrance, a new entranceway, and a multi-phase plan as a major renovation of Dunning Stadium. This was important to us, which is why we 100% funded it, because that is really recognition for everybody that has contributed to the Athletic Foundation to date, and really those that, you know, helped support the rebuild of Water Tower 1, the new build of Water Tower 2 and 3, the new build of the track, those big projects that we did in 2017 and 2018. Felt it was important to recognize those donors at the place where, you know, I would argue is the crown jewel of athletics in the state of Connecticut, right at the entranceway. We're actually, I just had a meeting this afternoon. We're we're going to go forward on the next piece of that renovation, which is a new ticket booth and a gated entry that will say Dunning Stadium, that will really shift the entrance of Dunning Stadium next to that donor wall. So everybody will walk by that donor wall as they move into a slightly moved entrance to Dunning Stadium. And the existing entrance will become basically a full building that in later phases will be concessions and restrooms and things of that nature. That's basically the continued work on phase 1 of Dunning Stadium. This is probably going to get the most discussion tonight. We've worked beyond construction documents now and moving through the town approval process for a new varsity baseball complex at Capo Field. I was here this time last year and we discussed this as part of the master plan that was laid out. John, you can probably go to the next slide because I think it's just discussed as the master plan. This was done back in 2018 when we contemplated the MOU, but this black line here kind of recognizes the enterprise zone that we referred to. Dunning Stadium, we've done a lot of renovation work there, including a rip and replace of the original surface that was really the origin of the Athletic Foundation, 100% funded by private citizens. We did Water Tower 1 rebuild. We did built 2 and 3 new de novo turf fields and a new 8-lane track, all done in 2017, 2018. I think it was 2017 into 2018. The next part of the master plan was to do the proposed varsity baseball complex at Capo. We discussed that last year. For the better part of the past year, we've been deep into construction, architecture, money raising to support the project. And I would tell you that project has a lot of support on the private side, not only from the baseball specific community, but really from the athletics community. And I'll get into some of the reasons why in a second. Just from a from a planning standpoint, that process, and we told them to do this, we said, go out and build us, every bell and whistle that you can possibly think of that we would want for a baseball complex. And the original price on that came in at roughly over $12 million. That was, more than I expected, but we asked them to build the Taj Mahal, if you will. And we value engineered that down initially to $10.5 million, and then again to roughly $6.5 million. And now we're going through one last value engineering project to try to get the price down a little bit. But the project has been proposed and approved right now by Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance in terms of the town contribution. And tomorrow night I will go to Town Council to ask for their approval as well as part of the 24-25 budget process. The numbers are a little bit different than what we initially proposed, but we're working through that. I think, John, if you go to the next slide. Oh, so this is a rendering of the entrance to Dunning Field. This is the donor wall that's been built. We haven't put up the flagpole or the shrubbery yet. That will be done as part of this phase 1B, I call it. That's the ticket booth and the new gated entryway. So you can see it just shifts the entrance a little bit. If you go to the next one, John, I think it's just basically the same thing. Gives you an orientation. We are slated to build a new press box as well, because there's a lot going on from the Athletic Foundation and the budget cycle with the town being what it is this year. We've kind of flip-flop our cadence. We actually had this approved last year, the whole complex approved as phase 1 last year. We're now calling this phase 1A, and the press box will be phase 2 or 1B, and we'll likely kick that. We're not likely, we are going to move that into the next year's budget year because Capo Field has taken the priority and precedence in terms of this fiscal year. So that's what's going on at Dunning Stadium. John, if you want to go to the next one. This is the rendering of the baseball field. I'm going to go to the next one, please. Okay, so here's some of the things that we focus on when we talk about Capo and why the varsity baseball complex should be on campus. I've said this a number of times, but we are the only FCIAC baseball team that has to take a bus to their home games. Now, that's a little bit for effect. You're taking a bus down to Mead Park. But the point is the baseball field is not on campus. The baseball field today, if you have to use the restroom, you have to go to the lodge at Mead Park. The baseball field today is a beautiful, nice country field, but doesn't kind of fit the standards of what we view and what our competitors have at their complexes. So our community, our baseball community, and the Athletic Foundation felt it was important to have the baseball field on campus. I should note, and Dr. Lutzy supported this last Thursday at Board of Finance, that both he and Jay Egan, the athletic director, are very much in favor of having this complex on campus, and they view this as being on campus. I talked about not building the Taj Mahal. We talked about the value engineering that has taken place. So the Athletic Foundation has already spent $135,500 to date on design and budgeting. Again, that's been 100% of our dollars. We haven't asked the town for any dollars when it comes to that. This is the second point that I feel needs clarification because, you know, we've had some misinterpretation in the past where people say, well, do we really need a baseball field? It's just one field for baseball. Is that like we're building a baseball complex? And what I've tried to implore on people is that what this is yes, a baseball field, but what's most important is it's actually additional turf footprint. For whatever reason, well, I know the reason, the Athletic Foundation, and specifically me, tends to be a great sounding board, I'll call it, for frustrations of sports on the youth and even varsity level. I hear a lot. And I would tell you the biggest pain point that we have at both New Canaan High School and the youth sports continues to be access of turf footprint. If you go back to 2016, 2017, we had 2 turf fields in this town at Dunning Stadium and Water Tower 1. We built, you know, more than 100% of additional turf complex, and yet the level of frustration and complaints about getting access to the turf fields went up, skyrocketed after we built those complexes. And so it's been curious to me, but what I've found is that everybody, because their competitors are playing on it, because you know, all sports want access to that footprint. And so while we created more than 100% of footprint, the demand skyrocketed all the way from K through 12. And so that, to me, I hear about it a lot. That's our biggest pain point. So what is Capo being designed for? Obviously, it's being designed at the configuration of a baseball field, but it's also going to provide that additional that additional turf footprint for other sports, especially in the off season. And I would tell you, because of the grain of the turf, which will be a little bit tighter made more for baseball. It's really effective for field hockey. It's super effective for practicing football or having flag football or soccer games with cones out there. I mean, it will be built in a in a baseball diamond location, but the use of it can be multi-sport and is multi-sport. Yeah, please, Steve.
So does the configuration and the size work for those other sports?
Sure, because I would tell you, today's a perfect example. Baseball is having their pitchers and catchers workouts, right? Today was a nice day, John. I think we talked about this morning. You know, they can't get on Mead Park today. It's sopping wet. They can't get on Capo Field today. It's sopping. So baseball would love to and makes a request to go out on the football field,
right,
just to be able to take ground balls, throw some stuff around, be outside. We get that same request from, so just like baseball can use that turf footprint because you're solving for a weather issue in the Northeast. You're not solving for, you know, you're not playing a regulation game. Same for field hockey, same for soccer. You can practice soccer. You can, in fact, soccer, you can set up like cones across the outfield and have a full field.
You can. Okay.
Oh, sure.
They used to play football down at Mead Park in the outfield.
Yeah, okay.
Long time ago, but.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Okay. Allocation of field time and space will continue to be governed by the Fields Committee with an acknowledgement that the Fields Committee contract and government needs to be updated. This is probably for your edification, but we've brought it to the attention of the first selectman's office or the selectman's office because that Fields report from 1997 is grossly outdated and needs to be updated. They will do that as part of that. That report is the governance of how the fields and the field time is allocated. The Athletic Foundation doesn't have anything to do with the operations of these fields. Obviously, they're owned and operated by the town, but we do hear a lot about access to fields and how that stuff is governed. And we're working in partnership with the town to try to get that Fields Committee report updated. I put this one in because I figured I was probably going to get some pushback. I've already heard a little bit of pushback from the Board of Finance. I know that there's a process going through the town today for a replacement of a turf field up at St. Luke's School. There's other things that have happened in neighboring towns in the state of Connecticut regarding turf. I would be brief and just say that turf is safe and necessary in the Northeast for all the reasons that I just said to you. I find that there's a lot of misinformation. I find like there's a lot of misreporting. I find like there's a lot of people that just aren't well researched and informed. I can promise you there's probably nobody in this town or in Fairfield County that knows more about turf and its safety than I do. We hired in 2016 a turf specialist, a guy by the name of Ryan Teeter, who was out of LDD Design, who was our educating body. He lays turf throughout the entire country. We were pushed, and not pushed, we pushed him to make sure that when we did the rip and replace on Dunning, when we did the 3 new fields next door here, Water Tower 1, 2, 3, that all of our fibers or the infill for the turf was something called EPDM, which is basically virgin rubber. It's not recycled rubber from tires or anything like this. It's at an additional expense, a pretty hefty expense, but that was important to us so that we could go out and educate the community that we've done the research, we understand, and in fact, we have the experts in this area to be able to defend this if in fact we get pushback on it. So I'm happy to share all of that research. I can just tell you that a lot of the comments that I get in public forums are, in my opinion, not particularly informed. And I would put myself up against most in terms of having deep understanding in this particular area. You may.
Do you have a piece of paper in this presentation that shows us that it's safe?
That it's safe. I do not have safer than
grass.
Oh, I don't have a piece of paper in this presentation, but I certainly have the research and documented evidence that I could bring that,
I would see that.
Yeah. certainly. So, okay, we've done the research, okay.
Mike?
Yes,
is there
sir.
a possibility that this, new varsity baseball facility can also be a revenue generator for the town, during the off-season, sublet it to other groups that might want it?
If, as you saw in the master plan, this complex is located within the enterprise zone, so therefore it would be used and utilized in that June 15th, August 15th period for the same way that Water Tower 1, 2, 3, and Dunning Stadium are used. Absolutely. This is important. I have the research on this last year. I don't know, like the spring is always disastrously wet and hard. Nobody can attest to that more than John. This past fall, if anybody can remember, was maybe the worst and wet fall that we've had. John, I went back and did the research. I don't know if you know this, but 31 days we lost. We lost 31 days out of a total 213 days. So children were not able to be on the fields and do and participate in the sports that they were supposed to participate in and had paid for, by the way, through their programming for 14.5% of the total days that were available to be on those fields. That's a lot. There was a time when, you know, people would shudder to call the fields hotline and get that poor message from Stevie at the worst job in the world that the fields are closed today because of rain, right? You get that apparently, I mean, as a parent of a 10, 11-year-old, like that call on Saturday morning when you're anxious to get out of your house and participate in your sports, and now you're locked up because the fields are unplayable. This solves for that. This solves for a lot of that. And that's why I feel so strongly and important about it. And that's why it's not just me, it's the constituents in this town that are so strongly supportive of it. We talked about the turf endowment, you know, established in the enterprise zone and the player use fees. Everybody should know, on average, the natural life of the turf field was about 10 years. I think when we were at Dunning, when Dunning was going to be condemned and the Athletic Foundation was formed and stepped in and ultimately funded that project in I think we ripped and replaced it in 8 weeks, but we raised $750,000 in a 2-week period so that Dunning Stadium would be allowed to be opened in the fall of 2016. My understanding, I think at that time we were about a 15-year life and the surface was going to fail its GMAX test, or did fail its GMAX test, which is why from a safety standpoint, we had to rip and replace and the private citizens ended up doing that. I think that's basically my presentation and I'm happy to take any other questions.
I have a quick question in terms of just like the environmental impact, both in terms of like water displacement, drainage and all of that, but also with like turf, it's great that it's so safe and it's the virgin rubber and all of that, but like, have there been developments and is this keeping up with sort of environmental surfaces, like within turf or like artificial coverings?
Yeah, so the answer to that, I'll answer the second one first, is absolutely. They continue to make advances every single year. I mean, the people that are doing this at Shaw and Field Turf, and I forget the third manufacturer, Shaw's a Warren Buffett company that is who we end up using. I mean, they are making advances every single year. And a guy like Ryan Teeter gets that to us every single year. So I'm confident in saying, yes, there's improvements every single year. In terms of the drainage and replacement, it's interesting. All of these fields have sub-drainage, and John's probably more of an expert on this than I am, or Tiger is certainly. But you can have, and I can't remember exactly what the experiment is, but like a considerable amount of rainpour that lands on these fields, and because of the underground drainage into storm drainage and all
Before
that.
it gets into the storm drainage, it goes into detention basins.
Right.
And like Water Tower 2 and 3, they're underneath the field. So that most of the water seeps back into the ground.
Right.
Which is what you want.
Right.
So
you don't want it instantly flushing the river.
You don't have anything flushing into the systems. Exactly. I would tell you again, because the Athletic Foundation did the redesign, That Water Tower One field was initially built on a 36-inch pitch. It was done incorrectly. It cost us an additional $750,000 to fix it. There was a rainstorm once that actually picked up the turf and washed it all the way down the 3-foot pitch. Because it was built incorrectly, we don't do that anymore. We build it right. Yeah, Bert?
I'll give it.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks, Mike, for this. So I was a baseball player. I'm all for a great baseball field. I was curious about your thoughts, sort of just big picture, Wade Park. This project is great. I know it's off the ground. I thought maybe it'd be beneficial to hear your views on, like, down the road, if there's interest in more turf. Do you have some views on kind of at what point perhaps the turf is enough turf so that Waveney as a park is also properly preserved by this commission and future members?
So I'll answer the first question. We were very sensitive to the fact that, you know, we have an existing baseball field there today. It's a natural grass field. But we were sensitive to the fact that we are pushing out into the park, right? The natural park. And we had talked about having it pulled back a little bit more even in the outfield, having shrubbery, plants, things that make it look more natural as it pushes out into the park, knowing that, you know, again, existing field there today, but we wanted to be sensitive to pushing too far out into the park. In terms of your second question, the only answer that I can reasonably give on that, how much turf is enough turf, is when I can see the bottleneck being relieved. And I can see that every sport, because again, we hold true to our mission statement, which is all sports and community, that every sport is getting fair access to the surfaces that they want to play on. And today we don't have that. We're nowhere close. I mean, the fever pitch of complaints that I can't get my programming onto the surface that I want to play on, which by the way, are the same surfaces that my competitors are playing on. I'll tell you, the biggest shift in my view over the last 7 years has been soccer as a program used to prefer to play on natural gas. And in fact, what's the field behind the
Connor Field.
Connor Field is maybe the most beautiful natural grass field in Fairfield County, because on the other side of the school, well, I don't want to get into this, but like they can just maintain it really well. That's great. Except no soccer players want to play soccer on grass anymore, because every one of their competitors, at least at the high school level, are playing on artificial surface. So therefore they need and want to practice on artificial surface, and that because they're competing against it in away fields. And then, so what that does is you have a massive program in soccer, over 1,000 people between kindergarten through K through 12, that have now created additional pressure on that surface. Until that bottleneck's relieved, I'm going to continue to hear complaints, and I'm going to continue to tell the town about it as the person that seems to hear the most about those complaints.
Can you put the map up again?
Sure.
So we have that to look at while you're talking.
Sure.
We've got.
Yeah.
You want to put the master plan map up?
Yeah,
Keith.
so, yeah, we could have put up, the varsity baseball field wins. So it shows, the perimeter.
This
there
one?
Yeah,
Okay.
the kind of brown or
Yeah.
whatever color that is.
Mhm.
So is that gonna be a fence or
No.
a hedge?
Oh, this is that's what I was talking about, that we were going to try to hedge that and make it like more look kind of as it pushes out into the park, that it's going to be a fence. It will be a
Yeah.
permanent
So
fence,
that's
but
really quite a bit different than what we have today, right? Where it's just open.
today you have nothing. That's correct.
Yeah, to me, that's almost bigger than putting in the,
Today you also have softball games that are taking place at the same time as JV baseball games, where you have center fielders potentially colliding and having, I've been on that field when that's happened. It's a
This,
dangerous situation.
this is the varsity field at Mead
No, this is the
Capo.
proposed
Right
Capo
up
field.
right over here.
Stop
Right
it,
up here.
right up here.
and behind Lapham.
Yep,
Right there.
Capo Field.
Yeah.
Thanks.
This is the men's recreation softball field, or that's it. I've literally seen men smash into junior varsity center fielders because they're both chasing balls that are going on at the same time.
So again, Is that gonna be like a chain link fence or a hedge or?
I don't recall off that, this is meant to be a hedge in the back. I don't recall exactly what the fencing is. The materials, I don't know if it's chain link or I think we were using netting for a lot of, at least this stuff
And
back in here.
How high would that be?
I don't know the spec off the top of my head. I have a, yeah, I would say it's not gonna be 6 feet. It would be a typical outfield fence, which is somewhere
Which
between.
is between 42 and 48 inches.
Right.
Yeah, okay. And what happens to the field they're using right now at Mead Park?
So that would likely, this is considered to be right now in New Canaan, you have 3 60-90 fields. We define those as Mead Park, the varsity field, Capo Field is the JV field, and Connor Field is a freshman baseball field. This would effectively, for high school play, flip the varsity and JV play, but you still have the same 60-90 footprint that you would in the town. You just have 1 artificial surface and 2 natural surfaces. Because there's other, Babe Ruth plays over the summer. There's other people that use the baseball fields in addition to just the high school sports.
So did you consider just putting an artificial turf at Mead Park?
The problem
No,
you run into by doing that is there's some trees, quite a few trees that come into.
there's
play.
8 trees.
Yeah, there's
One of them
trees
is
on the
gonna be
right
for
field
150
and the left field lines that are encroaching in the field of play. And definitely out in Sounder Field, there's one huge tree,
Beautiful tree, I know.
a beautiful tree, but it comes into play.
So that would have to be taken out if you put in dirt, that would
To truly make it playable.
Well, I don't think anybody
Yeah.
wants to put turf around a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It-
okay.
It also doesn't satisfy the thought that it's not on campus anymore. So
Right. Yeah. You got a question?
Yeah, so question is something, I'm not an expert on baseball, but I do want to say that when it comes to soccer, for example, this fall was a little pressure in terms of the rain and a lot of days of practice. And remember as a soccer mom, seeing the scramble to get, especially the travel team on turf. And so I kind of understand a little bit, how this can help relieve that pressure. My question is more regarding parking and traffic at Waveney. If you have you looked into how that would look like if it will become the varsity baseball field? There are multiple things going on in the season. Do you anticipate that parking is going to be enough? The traffic flow is going to be?
Yeah, it's a good question. I can't say that we've done a parking study. I can tell you anecdotally, when you have a varsity baseball game at Mead Park, I mean, if you want to see chaos, and if there's 2 youth games going on at Melick and Gamble, and you get a nice day and there's a bunch of people at the playground and the Mead Park Lodge is busy with food, you'll have cars parked to Zoombox Coffee. And it's quite frankly, a dangerous situation in that small parking lot.
Mike?
Yes, sir.
sorry, the consultants did look. We had them look at that, the allocation of parking, and believe it or not, the pool is actually very close. And the pool's not necessarily in service at the time. So the outfield fence line is actually close to the pool. But we did do a study of all the parking around Lapham, the adjacent water tower turf parking lot that we just put in a year or 2 ago, 3 years ago, and then the pool parking lots as well as the paddle lot. And given the fact the timing versus some of the Lapham's programs aren't necessarily during baseball games, so there's an overlap of parking. So so the consultants came out with the idea that no additional parking was needed. We had enough on the campus, on the Waveney campus itself, to satisfy within a short distance to satisfy any of the needs.
Thanks for the assist.
Well, no problem.
It's a lot better than my anecdotal stories of chaos.
No, but thank you for bringing up that it's gonna relieve some of that traffic at Mead, because it's a playground for young kids, and as another of young kids, that's other concerns. So I think it really, thank you, answered the question.
Can you go into the sports lighting? It says, on your piece there that there's gonna be sports lighting. I mean, I'm assuming that you're gonna do day games, but what
I believe that certainly in the latest iteration, there are no lights contemplated for this field. I think, Tiger, you'll have to remind me because this was years ago. I thought that this was actually approved, or there was some level of approving for lighting. We haven't contemplated lighting in this complex, save for the fact that it would make sense to lay conduit in case one day you wanted to do that. Very similar to, we did that at the track. We didn't have the money to add the additional $250,000 it would have been to create low-level lighting around the track. But in case we ever want to do that in the future, we laid the conduit so that you wouldn't have to dig up anything in order to do that. As this stands today, this is not a lit field.
Yeah, are there rules against lit field?
There's rules against lit fields in certain places, like the track could never have spotlighting because, or athletic lighting because of its proximity to Waveney Care. I believe that's the case on Farm Road Field, which is why the youth soccer programs actually rent the low-level lighting, mobile things, and a lot of that has to do with the proximity to Waveney Care.
Right. And Mike, also the park itself has its own zone. It's called the Waveney Zone, and it has its own zoning regulations associated with it. And one of those is lighting. So if we were to propose lighting, we'd have to go back to planning and zoning for that approval. It was contemplated at one point in time, to your point, on this field, but it didn't go forward at that time. But if we were to contemplate it in a future iteration, we'd have to go back to planning and zoning for their review and approval, given the fact that it's a requirement inside the Waveney zone.
And Tiger, maybe that's a good segue. Can you just speak to, because I'm not as familiar with that. We are going in front of planning and zoning at some point for this project soon.
That's correct. We'll have to do, we're going to have to be in front of the Inland Wetlands Commission, as well as planning and zoning. So Inland Wetlands itself, we have a small amount of wetlands over by the maintenance facility, the parks maintenance facility, and then across the street, across the pool road, there's areas as well of wetlands, and we're we're within the 50-foot setback for that. And given it's a large town project, we feel it's necessary to go back to Inland Wetlands for that. And P&Z has to approve a site plan because of the overall amount of disturbance of material. So they have a 10,000 square foot limit on disturbance of material. So we have to go to them for that. And we would go to them for all the other things that Mike has mentioned. So it would be, we're going to present a cohesive design so that they can look at it once and understand exactly what the thoughts are for the facility and get their approval. So they're looking at it once and see what the overall concept is. And those will be seeking those approvals within the next month or two.
Okay, are fields open only to New Canaan programs, 100%?
Outside of the enterprise zone, yes, and New Canaan programs always have first priority. The enterprise zone activity from June 15th to August 15th, where we're bringing in revenue for the town, that's open to outside, because those are commercial organizations that are running practices or tournaments that are, people from outside of town that are utilizing our fields, but we're generating revenue for that and putting it back into the fields. But outside of that footprint, it's New Canaan only, and again, not governed by the Athletic Foundation, governed by the Fields Committee and the town.
Mike, I have one further question, a little off topic from this, but the field house or basketball arena near Dunning Stadium, where does that stand right now? I know we talked about it at length last year.
Well, I appreciate the question, George. I would just say we get a lot of requests from a lot of constituents. They have to be prioritized. What we say is we follow the support. It's a good example as to why the press box stadium, or the press box project at Dunning Stadium got moved back a year, and Capo renovation accelerated ahead a year because we have very strong support from a donor standpoint for Capo Field. And you never want to allow those gifts to fade. That's when you have your support, you want to strike while you have the support. We have support for those other projects. We're a volunteer organization that can only do so much. But again, we've talked about expanding the master plan, and two of the things that we talked about were, again, the master plan is just a master plan that ultimately gets executed when you have the money and everything in place. We expanded the master plan, and I should have had it on here.
Is it not on there? You can't put it up?
Well, because that I don't have it, right? We just announced the concept of the expansion of the master plan.
There it is.
That's the initial master plan. That was what was approved in 2018.
Okay.
What George is referring to is a basketball complex. There's a desire for that, an indoor basketball complex.
Okay.
And again, there's a desire for additional turf footprint at the Saks fields, at least for one. Again, we're not there yet, but I would tell you the bottleneck is real. That's a place where we have support from the school system, particularly Saks Middle School, because they're losing recreation time, where they're not able to have their kids go outside for recess because they can't get onto the fields. So when in support and in conjunction with Dr. Lutzy and the Saks community, they are supportive of seeing that too. So I believe it was a year ago, November, with the approval of, or the blessing of both the BOE and the Selectman's office, we announced an expansion of the master plan, which included those two additional projects. When they will get done, it's hard for me to tell because, again, we follow the support and we prioritize where we have support, and there's only so much you can do in any given year, certainly in this year's budget cycle.
Okay.
So,
thank you. Are there any other questions for Mike? Well, Mike, as always, we really appreciate coming to us tonight, and wish you the best of luck tomorrow night. I'll be there with John. And thank you for all you're doing for the town.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Smith. Waving disc golf, which is getting more and more popular.
Yeah, my name's Tim Smith. I helped establish the Waveney Disc Golf Course. I'm not sure if you're all familiar, but it's located on the other side of Lapham, between the railroad tracks and 106, in that area there. Like I said, it was established in 2007. We have a huge volunteer. I mean, almost all the work in there is done through volunteers, except when we need the big stuff done, and then we go through John and Todd. Through the Parks Department. I have Chase Ashley with me and Mickey Stamen, great volunteers. They've helped out a lot too. So what we're going to do is have Chase go through the PowerPoint, and then figure if you guys have questions or anything, sure, and ask us, and then we might have something.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not going to go through each of these.
They have to copy.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not going to go through each of these bullet points, but the first one I did want to spend a little bit of time on. So the disc golf course originally, when I started playing 2.5 years ago, like a lot of people got sort of involved in COVID. One of my sons-in-law played disc golf, and he bought me a set of beginner discs. I went in there, played it, liked it, and I live just on the other side of the park on Conrad Road south of the Y, so it's easy for me to stop over there. So I got very much involved in it, wanted to help out in maintaining the park, the course, so I got involved. And the course had blue and white tees. We finished putting in a white tee on each of the holes last year, and we added red tees this year. Now, because the tee pads are simply dirt, creating a new tee just involves putting a new stake in the ground as to where people start to throw from. And the genesis of the red tee is, we had some red tees before, but they were sort of in disuse. But there was one of the guys who plays a lot there is a music teacher at Middlesex Junior High School in Darien, and they actually they have a disc golf club there at Middlesex.
Oh, right.
And which would be a good idea perhaps to us to consider, because we actually have a disc golf course in Darien, doesn't. And he said like, gee, I've got my kids that are putting there. It'd be really nice if they had like a, beginner friendly course to throw on. And there really wasn't anything in the area. And so, we went ahead and put in a set of red tees, which are beginner friendly. So that, if you're a beginner, you're only able to throw it just like 100 feet, and it's good for kids or somebody just wants to play a real quick round. But it really kind of opens up the course to all levels of ability. And, the guy from Middlesex is saying like, maybe we can get a youth tournament in here. Youth disc golf is not as big as a lot of other youth sports, but his son, for instance, plays competitively in tournaments and stuff like that. We added basket flags, which helped a lot of visibility, be able to see where you're trying to throw to. That was funded by the town purchased those for us, and they've been a big success. I was worried that there might be vandalism issues, but everything's fine there. Directional issues. We did some more improvements of signage. One of the big complaints about disc golf courses is you finish one hole and it's not necessarily that easy to find the next hole. And so there's added directional signs to each of the baskets pointing the direction of the next hole. And in addition to the regular signs we have. A lot of the other changes were to make the holes more playable. There are a lot of nasty, invasive, thorny bushes over there. And I guess probably in Waveney Park in general. And almost all of them are invasive species. You have multiflora rosa, you've got Japanese barberry, you've got Japanese wineberry, and all these are just, if you just happen to go in there, you just come out bleeding. So try to get rid of some of those bushes in the areas where people's discs are more likely to end up. Added a new bridge over a gully so people don't have to hop over that. And a lot of the other changes were to create new pathways so that there was less chance of less need for people to walk close to other holes when they're trying to get from one hole to the next. In some cases in the past, you actually had to go across one of the other fairways to get to the next hole. Not a big deal at Waveney usually because at the good of course, there's just not that many people playing it. But if you have a tournament, for instance, or if it became more popular, it's particularly for tournaments where you have better players can throw farther, there's more concern about people getting hit by discs. So we wanted to make sure that the pathways we had pathways so that there was less risk of people getting hit from other holes. So for 2024, have a couple of projects, a number of which we've already started, and one of which we completed. One of the holes, the basket for the hole was in a very swampy area. The property in general has a lot of wet areas, but if there's an opportunity to put a basket in a drier area, that's where we want to put it. So we moved this basket a little bit so it's no longer in the swampy area. Wood chips seem to be very popular at disc golf courses for both erosion control and putting on the muddy paths. It doesn't solve all mud issues. It's only if it's a light mud issue. Anything more than that, we've got some wooden walkways, which look great. But for the things that are not as muddy, the wood chips will work very nicely. And basket areas tend to, any vegetation around the basket area tends to get killed off just for people walking around it, which leaves bare dirt, which if you're on a hillside, you get erosion control issues. You have exposed roots, which is bad for the trees, but it's also bad for disc golf because you throw your disc and it hits the root and it pops up and it rolls away someplace. It's kind of like that. So we're using wood chips around the baskets that have exposed roots in order for both to make the hole play a little bit fairer and also to reduce erosion. Another project we started on is there was the hole 11, the fairway of hole 11 was quite close to the fairway of hole 10, so that sometimes people throwing on hole 10, their disc would go onto the fairway of hole 11, which is again, a little bit dangerous if you had a lot of people out there playing. So we found a good place to move hole 11 so it's further separated from hole 10. And the only thing we're waiting for there is a couple of really big, super big leaner trees that we need to get cut down because it's just not safe to have them there on the fairway. And the big project that we're hopefully get started on this year is adding turf tee pads, starting with the blue tees. It would be a multi-year project to get all the tees because we've got 54 holes, got the blue, white, and red tees. And the people who care about it most are the better players who are playing for the blue tees. And the biggest complaint about the disc golf course currently is the state of the tees. They are dirt, there's roots and rocks in them, and it requires, constant maintenance to try to make sure there aren't low levels there and get rid of additional roots and rocks, which always seem to come over the top. And if it's wet, it's a mess. And particularly bad, even if it's not that wet in the winter, you get freezing and thawing. Anytime it freezes, if there's water in the turf and in the ground and then it thaws, it's just a mess and you can't really play on it. So I guess in general, the whole turf issue we just had the presentation for. We're looking to put turf tees in on the blue tees. I think we priced it out. It's like $300 per tee.
Yeah, and the tees are not permanent. There is a wood frame with like sand or some sort of substance in it, and then the turf is screwed onto the wood frame. So if you ever needed to move it, get rid of it, if you didn't want disc golf there ever again, it'd be a really easy thing to do. That's the good thing about disc golf is that it's not a large impact on the environment. It was easy to, I mean, we got to work a lot to maintain it, but it's something that's, it's not cement or it's not permanent, basically.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the turf and concrete are like the two most popular surfaces. Obviously, concrete, you can't move around very easily. So, and turf tees, I think, are kind of the new gold standard. That's what a lot of the new courses are installing. Cranberry Park just put in turf tees on their tees. Right. All the courses in Scandinavia, which is very big in disc golf, have turf tees. We've also been started to talk to the town about getting a crosswalk across Latham Road. There are a couple of parking spots on the I guess it's the west side.
Yeah.
Which is, if I'm doing work in the course, and I've got a lot of equipment in my back, I want to park there, so I don't have to, haul too far.
You need a crosswalk. It's true.
Yeah.
So we talked about that for a couple of years already.
Crosswalk being like some lines or what?
So I can speak to that for 1 minute and then I'll let Tiger. Tiger and I had a discussion a few months ago, actually, to discuss the possibility of installing a crosswalk. And Tiger's comment, I'll let him speak, was your timing is perfect. But maybe Tiger, if you're still on the phone, do you want to give an update on that crosswalk?
Sure. So we're thank you. We're currently analyzing that. To Mickey's comment, we're looking at redoing Benko Pool within the next month. Actually, starting within the next month. Asphalt plants open March 18, and the contractor's slated to come in first or second week of April. Once he gets done with a couple of projects he has queued up, so the timing is right for that. To the mention of the fact that we do have a couple of pull-off areas on the one side of Lapham, we would like to formalize those. There's a secondary reason for that. That's for ADA compliance as well. And then look towards the possibility of putting in a crosswalk in for anyone that might be parking in the paddle lodge, the paddle hut parking lot, the one between the pool and paddle, and coming down to utilize the facility. If we were to go forward with that, that would actually have to go to the police commission for approval. They would have to approve that mid-block crosswalk since it's not an intersection. But we are currently analyzing that to see whether or not we'd like to talk to the disc golf a little bit further to find out exactly how much usage and see. We don't want to put up a mid-block crosswalk if it's not going to be utilized often, because then the subsequent thought is that if we have too many in town, people stop paying attention to them, and that would be detrimental to the entire cause. So if it's very needed, we'll definitely look to install it and then go to the police commission for approval.
Right.
Okay.
But you're talking about a crosswalk, not a stop sign, right?
No, I wouldn't. No, stop sign is definitely not warranted in that area. It would be a mid-block crosswalk from the pool driveway across to the paddle, to the pull-offs at the paddle area itself. With so it would be striped and signed accordingly.
I'll just mention that you'll see, in the future slides, we have statistics on usage. That go to how many people are actually using the disc golf course.
That would be excellent. Thank you.
I have a question. If the crosswalk goes from where Tiger's describing it, the entrance to Waveney between the paddle courts and the pool, can the entrance for the disc golf be shifted slightly so that it's not, it's like 25 yards down the other way?
Yeah, I would say we're pretty flexible with that. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like, there's no sidewalk there or anything like that. So
right. Okay, good.
And the last thing is just, I mean, it has been a very wet fall and winter, and just highlighted a couple of other areas where we could use some more wooden walkways.
Right.
So we probably put some more of those in. Next one.
Right, great.
So this is
Wow.
Yeah, course usage, and this is the number of rounds recorded on the course by players using the UDisc app. The UDisc app is basically the only app that disc golfers use to record their rounds. It's a very nice app. You can locate any disc golf course worldwide using the app. You can keep your scores in the app. It keeps all sorts of fancy stats for you on the app. According to UDisc was, I think they started like 2007 or maybe it was 2012. But anyway,
is that YOU?
It's just the letter U, capital DISC.
Thank you.
They did a study in 2020 where they got a data scientist in who did a study, and he estimated that approximately 20% of all disc golf rounds are recorded on UDisc. There's a lot of people who don't use the app. There's a lot of people, probably most people only sometimes use the app. And so you can say the play count, the actual play counts are like about 5 times these play counts. Yeah. So part of this increase is, particularly the early years, it had to do with, increased use of the UDisc app. But a big chunk of it, the jump between like 2018 and 2019 and 2020, was because of Tim's work increasing the disc golf course from 12 holes to 18 holes, which made it a lot more interesting to people.
And I think COVID played a big part.
Yes, well, there was also COVID. There was a big jumping, but the jump for disc golf in general is not as huge as the jump there from 2019 to 2020.
Yeah.
And what happened, and this is sort of industry wide, there was a plateau after COVID ended, as people went back to their normal lives, and they sort of stopped playing their COVID sports as much. And that was flat, although it was mostly it wasn't like the disc golf in terms of the number of participants has continued to grow even after COVID. It's just people didn't play as much disc golf, as many, people who played didn't play as many rounds. Anyway, and from 2022 to 2023, we had a huge jump in course usage. Number of rounds more than doubled. And actually switch to the next slide. This is course usage by month. Not surprisingly, it's used more in the warmer months than the winter months. Curiously, the middle of summer, maybe curious or not, is not as busy as spring and early fall, end of summer. But the green line is last year, and the course usage number of plays in last year exceeded the number of plays in each month of the prior year. So we actually started, where's 2022? We started exceeding the COVID month back in summer of 2022, but it really jumped up last winter. And I think that's probably a direct result of our improvements to the course. As word of mouth got around that, hey, Waveney's, a pretty easy course. They've been making improvements to it. And part of that, actually, the number of plays at Cranberry's disc golf course went down last year because we were sucking away some of the people who were playing at Cranberry. So I said the number of rounds that were recorded on UDisc on the Waveney course was more than twice the number of rounds since 2022, and that's compared to only a 20% increase at all the Connecticut disc golf courses. So it was a big increase for us, much more. So the usage generally is going up fairly significantly, but we had a huge bump last year. The number of players went up almost as much. But the fact that the number of players went up slightly less than the number of rounds means that, yes, a lot more players are playing, but even the few players who are playing were playing more rounds there. I mentioned the number of rounds in each month of 2023, you can see that in 2022. And we hosted 2 tournaments of the course, I guess, way back in the day.
So yeah, we hosted 2 last year. I think there's only gonna be 1 this year, which will be the Waveney warm-up, they call it. It's always in April. We try to hold the tournaments where it's, we use the pool parking lots, but we hold them so not during this, when the pool's active. Right. And then way back to 2009 and 2010, I ran 2 tournaments with good success also. So we used temporary pools then because we didn't have a pool.
But yeah, last year was the first year since like 2010 that the course has hosted a tournament because people recognized that it was in good shape and had improved. So we had 2 successful tournaments held at the tournament. At the course.
Fantastic.
Question, how frequently does it need to be maintained?
We're out there all the time. We have like
constant.
We'll text each other and we'll all meet out there and
I'm actually, because I live just, it's Tim used to live in town, but now he lives in Fairfield, so he's not close. So Nikki and I are in town. But since, I guess, because I'm a new convert, I'm one of these fanatical new converts, and I live just on the other side of the park. So it's easy for me to come over. And I find I used to have to meditate more or go for like walks in the regular Waveney, but just getting out in the woods there kind of takes the place of,
Sure.
I'm not working on my own lawn, but it's, it's fun to go down there and putt around and do stuff. So I'm out there like 4 or 5 days a week, walking around, picking up sticks,
and
trimming weeds in the summer.
Has the town donated anything? Have we given them money?
In the last 2 years, we're on the second year, presently second year, it was $10,000 a year. So the carpet, the turf that they want, their materials for their pads and stuff like that, we purchased out of that money. The carpet was actually supposed to show up today, but it didn't. So getting close.
So we still have that based
We still have money to use.
Excellent.
Yes, we noticed that in the budget for 24-25, that funding had been removed.
It's not that it was removed, it was only 2 years that we put money in there. So it was never planned to be in this last request.
So is there like $20,000 sitting around?
Not 20,000 because we spent some of that,
but we did
some of the work.
We
did not spend it all.
We did the 2 tees, which I don't know how much that cost. We got the flags. Was there anything else that came out?
So there's funds available.
There's funds available.
Okay. Because it's not something that requires much money, and the big capital improvement will be putting the turf tees, which is, it's like I say, it's about $300 for materials, and our group of volunteers are going to provide the labor putting it in. Yeah. We've got currently like 12 people. We're trying to grow our group of volunteers so we have a nice healthy base. But we have 12 people who are volunteers as well work on the course.
The comment I was going to make about the maintenance is that we're kind of in a period now where we're changing some holes. Chase mentioned specifically hole 11, where a lot of work has been done to create the new hole 11. So we consider that maintenance as well. So when it comes to the actual maintaining the existing course, is only a portion of the effort we're putting into the project today. Building the tees is something else that's a one-time. To build the tees, then to maintain them would be relatively long.
Yeah, you're hosting a tournament next month, right?
April 20.
So do you understand?
So it basically
announce,
so it's called Waveney Warm Up. It's on April 20th. It's already full. So sometimes they squeeze an extra player. Typically it's 72 players, 4 person a hole. It's a shotgun start, play 1 round, have a lunch break, and then play a second round. So it takes all day. It's a lot of fun, great group of people. But yeah, so it'll be 72 people. Last year, the 61 players was a flex tournament where you have a tee time and you just show up and play. And I don't think the guy was that happy with the turnout, because usually you get like over 100 people for something like that. But I think one tournament's, works well for the course.
Just go back to the crosswalk point.
Yes.
So the stat showed we had over 2,400 rounds recorded, and since only about a fifth of rounds are recorded on UDIS, the estimate is like we have 12,000 rounds played on the course, which means 24,000 trips across Lackawanna.
That's a big number. I think it needs to happen.
Also, we notice as we're playing, there are people who go out just to walk on the paths, because now it's fairly well defined on where you can walk, and the bridges that have been built aid in crossing creeks and other wet areas. So we see people walking dogs or just walking with their family in that area, because it's a nice wooded open area.
Right. Makes sense.
I was just gonna let you know, there is actually a club at the high school.
Oh, is it?
Oh, really?
Great. I noticed that.
Like son and my son probably were out there playing as well.
Yeah.
So.
I know there was a club that started way back when the course was first built.
Yeah, if they need help, let them know, because we'd be happy. I have a million discs in my basement, so I would be happy to donate kids or anything.
Yeah, we can donate a lot of discs because we get the Lost and Found, which collects a lot of discs.
I did hear about someone who had some amazing disc collection. So.
They also had a tournament named after a teacher at the high school. I just said that it's not a sanctioned tournament. These guys seem very serious.
Yeah.
Their little tournament didn't count.
Right.
But
No, that'd be awesome. We'd love to get the youth involved for sure.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a quick question. So, the trends are very interesting, and clearly there's more usage from our high school students. So currently, I assume that we don't have a electronic sign up like for the tennis courts or other facilities, but with these trends, are you expecting to have to, do something for people to just sign up and sort of, having a bit of, start times or.
No, they'll never get that serious.
Yeah.
It's
really casual.
For instance, Cranberry has about twice as much usage as our course has, and there's no sign up there. I mean, occasionally you might have to wait because there's a routine off, but there's not like a big line of people or a whole people waiting. I don't think. I think some of the commercial facilities, there are some commercial disc golf facilities, and some of those, do have reservation systems, stuff like that.
Or the on private property, the pay for play courses, but. Yeah.
So right now people can just show up.
They can just show up, yeah.
And is there sort of minimum age? How young can kids be?
As long as you can get it to move forward.
Yeah, some people just go out there, and I've seen a family go out there with their kids, and they don't really play from the tees. It's just kind of throw it at the basket, have fun, and and it's a walk. It's a walk in the woods.
That's great.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I want to say about one of the great things about Waveney and compared to Cranberry is a multi-use park, the disc golf area, and there are pedestrian walkways all throughout the course, and it's also an off-leash dog park.
Oh yeah.
And the two things don't work very well because dogs like to chase frisbees.
Yeah, exactly.
And we also know people who've been playing disc golf who've been bitten. So it's like,
oh boy,
you always have to watch out for people walking across when you're throwing and stuff like that. So one of the great things about Waveney is it's not Waveney disc golf course. It's not multi-use. We don't have people walking all around. A lot of disc golf courses were installed in regular public parks. And that's, it's a liability concern to have people walking around with people throwing discs. And get hit in the head. But that's what's great about the Waveney course is it's not. So I definitely don't want to see the main walking paths from Waveney extended over there and having people walking around with the dogs or places.
Any other questions?
The police commission, you said we have to go in front of them to talk about the crosswalk?
You don't have it.
Who's gonna do it? You guys?
Tiger will.
Tiger will do it. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take care of that. I take care of all the mid-block crosswalks in town, so now that I know there's 24,000 crossings, that matters a lot differently than, so we'll take a deeper look at it and then, meet with disc golf about the pull off, and then we'll come up with a plan and proceed forward.
Right. Thanks, Tiger.
Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
Is there any other questions? Thanks so much. Great job. Good. Okay.
Okay, sorry. I got a very brief slideshow. Ryan was not able to be here. These 4 pages are in your in your packet, but basically where we are with the playground is we're moving forward on the fitness equipment. We have some issues with the fitness equipment that's there. It's at the end of its life expectancy, and we want to be changing that out. So we want to move forward with the fitness equipment portion of this, and then while the fundraising is going on for the playground, that will happen, you know, most likely the following year, because right now we wouldn't have enough. So you can see by these pictures, this is replacing the existing fitness equipment. It will be in the same basic area, but it will move further towards the east, so that there's a large area available for the playground. So that's an overhead view. We would be setting it up with a poured in place surface so that it has a longevity instead of the wood chips. We're going to use granite curbing around it, and even though it's fitness equipment, there's still fall zones with all the equipment, so we have to make sure there's enough room. It's accessible equipment. This is for adults. Yeah, this is the replacement of fitness equipment there. So what we're looking for is, you can see that we're using browns and tans so that it blends better into nature. It won't be the bright blues that we see at playgrounds so many times and things like that. But we want to keep moving forward. So if everybody's happy here, we would like to then be able to proceed to the Board of Selectmen and ask to spend some money. And, yeah,
I know we approved it, but is everybody good with that? So John can proceed?
Yeah, these are 4 photos of the same thing, right?
4 photos, the same thing, different views, really.
Yeah, okay.
I only really like the first one the best, but I figured I should show you all 4.
Yeah. John, you said it was for adults, but the fire equipment was a kid magnet.
It was a kid magnet, yes. It's not supposed to be for kids, and there's signs that say that. And unfortunately, with a lot of fitness equipment, especially adult fitness equipment, children can get hurt. So this is not the playground. This is fitness equipment, which we feel we can proceed by installing this before we get the money for the playground. There needs to be some fundraising going on. So the fundraising group is working on that.
Will any effort be made to keep the kids, in addition to science, will any effort be made to keep the kids off of this?
Hopefully in a year, we'll have to have the playground and they'll have no desire to go on the fitness equipment, or not the same amount of desire where there is something that will be age appropriate. So no, we're not going to be locking it up or anything like that.
So I think you have our blessing.
Good. Thanks. Good. Ryan will be happy. He's enjoying the sun in Florida. So
Thank Ryan again.
He did a great job.
Yeah, he's working hard on it.
Yeah.
So, you know, as far as park maintenance, we're starting spring cleanups. It's the beginning of March, and usually we hit a few days here and a few days there, but it's been a good winter as far as that type of stuff. So we've been chasing leaves all winter, and the guys are out doing that. It's been a great year for going through our bench program, where we bring in the wooden benches, we have them power washed, and then we apply a sealant to them. So it's been a good year that way. We still have had a little bit of snow, but I haven't missed it. So as far as recreation, we're in our last session of our before and after school programs. Summer camps it's enrollment right now. We've gone from having 100 kids per session up to 120, and we're almost sold out. So we're very good at that. Very happy with that. On April 1st, pool passes, Kiwanis passes, tennis and pickleball passes, all that will be sold, opening up for that. So spring is coming. If anybody knows any kids that would like to have a job, we are definitely looking for camp counselors. We are, gate attendants and lifeguards.
Yeah.
We're not fully staffed yet, which isn't uncommon, but we always worry about the possibility of not having enough kids.
Quickly, along those lines, in the past, you guys used to do a recertification program for lifeguards. But then the last few years, you haven't done that.
We haven't been doing the recertification program. And
I just didn't know if that would help potentially get some of those kids, because it's that 2-year certification, it's such a fast.
It goes quick, 2 years.
I just didn't know if that would help you get more lifeguards.
We could look at it, knocking on wood, we've been very fortunate. We had more than enough lifeguards last year. We're not there yet. So until we beat it, actually until the end of August, when the season's over. But yeah, we can look into that.
I just didn't know if you were needing that.
On other little notes, Fishing Derby, the 33rd George Cogswell Fishing Derby is April 20th. You should have a flyer there.
We got it.
Next Saturday morning, you'll want to see the possibility of John falling out of a helicopter while he drives golf balls. I get to drop the golf balls again this year, so I'm looking forward to that. There's still some golf balls for sale. You have a copy of the summer concert schedule. Yeah, we have 11 concerts this summer. The only one, we're down to 11 mainly because July 3rd is a Wednesday and we won't be able to have a rain date, so we decided not to do one then. We're gonna have the YMCA do swim lessons at the pool again. And the last thing is, tomorrow night is the last step in the budget process. Well, the last formal presentation of the budget process. I go in front of the town council with our budgets, and so far, so good. They've supported us, the other two boards, so very happy. So that's all I have.
Thank you, John. Any questions for John?
I wanted to ask you about pickleball at the McKinney High School with tape.
We don't want to, we've been advised by the people that built the surface.
I spoke to him, he said that's not true.
He told us not to put tape down there, and then
he told me not duct tape, but if you use the painter's tape, it's fine.
Okay, well, I will circle back to it, but the installer of the tennis courts has told us not to put any tape down because it will discolor the surface.
That's Tom Harding or something, that's who I spoke to. It would be great because there are a large number of residents who work in town and can't play on the other end, but they can leave their houses early before they catch the train to go and play pickleball, and they'd like to do that. And Mead Park is closed to us for doing that. So you had said that we could use the high school, and I know it's possible for us to, but we don't have the lines down. So that would really be helpful if you could work on that, please.
I could definitely check on it. I can tell you we can't put them on and down until after the high school season, no matter what.
Which is June.
Which ends mid-June, basically, or beginning of June.
What's the possibility of putting an additional court at the high school that could be for pickleball?
There's not room before you get down into the wetlands. Okay. Not right where the tennis courts are, that's for sure.
Is that, you and I talked about, if something can be configured near that?
Yeah.
Boy, that's exactly. It takes care of the noise issue, everything.
And that's one thing why we were looking up near the paddle courts.
Yeah.
And the possibility of there. I actually was supposed to meet a guy today about, that would like to do some tennis work, that was gonna pick his brain.
So that's still ongoing.
That's still ongoing, for the paddle area, you know, where we had the picnic area and the fifth, the additional paddle court. Keith Simpson, the landscape architect, was looking at that, and we've talked to him about adding in the possibility of putting in pickleball courts in the same area and seeing what can fit there.
So I guess I thought that you were contemplating the grassy area between the hut and the access road.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's so that it would basically be paddle courts, the picnic area, and right into pickleball courts.
Right.
That's what we're looking at. It's a rough idea to start.
Yeah. Like you said, those are the put that thing. Why not?
Yeah.
That's great.
It would be a perfect spot. We have the lodge. We have the ability to light it.
Yep.
You know, so it would work out well, and we don't have any neighbor concerns with the lickety
You
clack.
got a bathroom and everything. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So
Fingers crossed on that, and that's such a great thing.
we're at the beginning, very preliminary, right?
Any other questions for John?
With that, can I just ask a question with the paddle pickleball being so noisy? Would it bother the paddle?
No,
Well,
because
it's funny
the
we talked
paddles
about
make the
that.
noise too.
Well, not to the degree that
Pickle does.
that's
The
consistent.
concern about the Spencer's run to a lot of dog park on is not to have a pickleball so close to the park. They're all for it, but depending on where you put it.
Yeah.
So
Dogs can bark, but you can't play pickleball.
that's a valid
That's
point.
ridiculous, sorry.
There's a,
Never
so
heard
that there's
anything
a,
that's
at least in the senior, the New Kent Men's Club, there's the same group that plays tennis, that plays paddle. And so we're used to playing tennis and hearing the pickleball.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't bother us, you know, and if we're playing paddle, we talked about, it, so no, it wouldn't bother us.
Yeah.
So, and again.
People have to talk to us.
And then at least there's no neighbors. I mean, I always feel sorry for the neighbors on the other
Right.
side of Mead Park.
Okay. Any other questions for John? Gotcha. Chairperson report, I'm quick and easy. First, I'd like to welcome Melanie Hearn, our newest addition to the. Pete, thanks so much for sending out the new sort of roster and contact information. If you guys see anything, incorrect phone number, incorrect email, please let Pete know so we can do corrections on that. I know there's a couple cell phones on that. The next meeting will be on Wednesday, April 10th. I'd be away that night, so I may be asking one of you guys to chair that. That's pretty much it. Lindsay, do you want to just give a quick recap of what we're on the policy? Just some.
Sure. Hank and Doug, George and I all met this week just to sort of talk about code of conduct and what takes a look at some different ones. We were looking at like Phoenix, we looked at Darien, we were looking at Brookfield. So we looked at high school in terms of like usage and some of their sort of do's and don'ts in terms of the code. And we're very early days, but we'll just sort of set the objective in terms of, you know, the enhancement of, you know, our community's experience within the parks and rec. And then we'll sort of go from there in terms of like what the real guidelines are. And then we'll, you know, so we'll start working on the documents first, kind of circulate it. We'll circle it around with John and your group so that, you know, and then we'll probably like go from there to have them look at it, have the attorneys look at it, you know, sort of like then continue to vet it out as we're looking at it. But anyway, I think everyone agreed that there was some appetite for putting a little bit more structure around what the expected code of conduct is and some of the do's and don'ts that have maybe been a little piecemeal, like, you know, through different documents and all of that.
So my only thought was, I think Mike pointed out that there's an ordinance that speaks to some of what goes on. So obviously you want to make sure that what you're doing is consistent with the ordinances. And I'm sure with legal, will be helping with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Lindsay, thank you, and thank you, Doug, for and spearheading this project. Really appreciate it. I think it's an important document involved. So, are there any questions or comments from the public?
Yes.
Okay. With
You're
that,
not saying anything?
With that?
You're not gonna say anything? Weren't you gonna talk about the?
No, I already went over.
Okay, good.
well, thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
And with that said, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Francesca, thanks. Seconded by Tim. All those in favor? Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
I try to keep that.